Welcome, everyone, to this special spring equinox show. My name is Allison from the Well Cultivated Life, and welcome here tonight. Today is March 20th, 2023, and it is the spring equinox. This is the time of year when we cross over from the dark time of year into the longer days where the light is now more dominant. And during this time, we can feel this sort of in between balance of the seasons as we're getting ready to shift in and sort of turn ourselves and our habits and our lifestyles toward a more looking more at being outdoors and enjoying the time outdoors. And so I wanted to just talk about a few things that you can do in the springtime to help shift yourself, both herbally, of course, and a few other things that can help you really start to appreciate this new season that we're coming into now. So I want to share just a little bit of a poem that I received just today from one of the herbalists that I love so much, Robin Rose Bennett, and she sent out a lovely spring equinox poem. And part of it, I love the way she describes our way that to be in spring. And she says, dig your roots down into the rich, wet earth and lift your light-filled branches to the sky and sing your unique song as only you can. I think many of us are celebrating, wanting to sing our own songs now that we are coming into this warmer and more light-filled time of the year. So many traditions celebrate the equinoxes, the solstices, and even in the Celtic tradition, the cross-quarter celebrations, which are those midpoints between an equinox and a solstice. And so the term for this in the Celtic tradition is Ostera. And then, of course, that sounds an awful lot like another type of celebration we have this time of year in Christianity, Easter. And often that's not a coincidence that the names for the Christian holidays were very similar to the holidays that people were used to celebrating at the same time of year, so that it would feel natural for them to become part of the Christian celebration when that came into where they, into their area where they were living. So both of these, of course, and in many other cultures, there's other celebrations as well, are really about rebirth and regeneration and renewal. And so it's what's happening in nature is what we're reflecting sort of in our own lives. And this is what a lot of these celebrations are based around. And this past week, I ran a challenge that some of you may have been on, all about spring and getting ready to start looking outside and harvesting some of the plants that are available for us. Because at this time of year, it's been a tradition for, thousands of years that people would look out to the new growth that was coming up in the springtime and be celebrating the fact that they could now start to change their diet and begin to eat some of this fresh plants that were now available that were not available over the winter. And so the idea of a spring cleanse comes in based on what people who lived more closely aligned with nature were doing naturally, because that's just what the seasonal changes were. So it turns out that plants, of course, are always looking out for us. And it turns out that most of the plants that come up early in the spring have properties that are beneficial to our bodies for what we have just gone through during a more sedentary winter, where we've been eating a lot more heavy foods and hadn't have access to a lot of the vitamins and minerals that our body needs. And so a lot of these spring greens that come up really are packed full of vitamin C and other type of nutrients that we've been somewhat depleted of over the winter. And the second thing that most of these plants have that are traditionally used for spring cleanses and spring tonics is another term for it, are that they have the ability to sort of stimulate our digestion, mostly the liver. The liver filters out so many things out of our bodies, and over the winter we're sitting around, we're not moving our lymph system, we're not really getting a lot of activity. It can get kind of loaded up, and so these herbs, most of them have a sort of bitter taste, and so this bitter taste is what helps to stimulate liver enzymes, stimulate the bile, and just kind of give the liver a bit of a flush out in the spring so that it doesn't keep these things built up all year round. Now, of course, we can access all these different types of fresh greens year round in our grocery store, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good idea to think about doing some type of spring cleanse, or at the very least, kind of up your game on switching up your diet to match what the season is showing you, and eat more seasonally. So what I want to do today is show you just a few of the plants that you could harvest right outside your in your yard or in the wild places around where you live, and to help you kind of do this transition in spring. So, because I don't know about you, but I'm not really that interested in eating a cold salad all winter long. Like, it just doesn't appeal to me. And so last week or the week before, I decided I would get some greens. Where I live, it's still covered with snow. I don't really have anything coming up in my garden except some little teeny tiny nettles about that big. And I decided to make some smoothies. And so I made some green smoothies and used not only the greens, but some other herbs I'll tell you about in just a minute. Now, one of the biggest proponents of this, of course, was the author and wild harvester Euell Gibbons, and he did a lot of work on looking at how nutritious wild greens are compared to a lot of what we can get in the store. And the reason why the wild greens can be so much more beneficial is because they are, for the most part, growing in a place where the soil has not been depleted by a lot of agriculture. So that is one of the reasons why he found in his studies that they were very, very filled with nutrition. So just remember, if you're not into, wild harvesting, you can still go foraging in your grocery store as well. There's plenty of things available there. So let's start out and meet some of our spring tonic friends with the one that we all love so incredibly much, dandelion. And I just love dandelion. It's beautiful. It's fun. It makes a gorgeous seed head that everybody loves. And the greens, the flower, and the root are all edible. And they're very helpful for us. Not only do they help with cleansing the liver, they're just very gentle. And so they're something that you could use probably most of the year round. Now, dandelion greens can usually be found in your grocery store produce section next to the kale and all the other the collards and things like that. So dandelions is one place to start. Now, a lot of people will harvest the flowers. You can make those, you can eat those, and you can also dig up the root and roast that and make that into a dandelion tea. Another plant that has a similar growth to dandelion is the yellow or curly dock. And this is definitely very much helpful for the liver. And it also is a mild laxative. It can help because sometimes when you start moving your liver, it's like you want to get the stuff out of there. And again, it's got very high vitamin C and minerals in the leaves. And you can also harvest the root. The root's definitely bitter, so you've got to be committed to the bitter flavor if you want to use yellow dock root. It's also sometimes called curly dock as well. And then nettles are one of the most wonderful earliest spring greens to come up. Of course, you want to use gloves to harvest these, and the nettles need to either be dried, and you can make them into a tea, or you can cook them and actually have them like spinach. You boil them or saute them, and what that does is it neutralizes that stinging property, which is a type of acid. I think it's formic acid that is on the little hairs along the plant. And so once you cook it, that goes away and neutralizes it. They're super nourishing. They have all kinds of nutrients. They're also a very good antihistamine. So if you get spring allergies, nettles can really help you to relieve some of that as well, especially the nettles tea. And of course, who doesn't love a beautiful violet? This, both the flowers you can harvest and they're edible. You can stick them into a salad, and the leaves themselves are also edible. They have very high vitamin C content, and you can put those into the salad as well. But there's nothing more beautiful than some violets sprinkled across the top of your salad. Now, there are a couple of herbs that you can just get in your grocery store. They can also help you with your spring cleanse. And the first of those is parsley. When you see parsley on your plate at a restaurant, don't let it go into the dish bin. You want to eat it. And parsley generally stimulates your digestion. It helps to just kind of get everything going because it warms things up. And it also has a lot of nutrients, and it has some other properties as well. So parsley is a great one to put on the shopping list for every time you go to the grocery store, and just keep that, throw it into everything that you're making. Another herb that you can get that in the grocery store is cilantro. And cilantro is the plant. Well, cilantro is the leaf, and then coriander is the seed of the cilantro plant. A lot of times it's called the coriander plant, but cilantro is the fresh leaf. So cilantro is known for helping with heavy metal detox. So it can help grab onto different metals and move those on out. Coriander, the seed, is more of a stimulant. It warms the digestion. It kind of helps everything move. And so when you're trying to do, let's say you want to cleanse your liver, like I was saying, you want to make sure that things are moving out. As you start to mobilize any kind of waste products that have built up, you want to make sure that you're moving them out of your system. So there you go. Parsley, cilantro, grab some handfuls, get yourself some greens, just throw them into a smoothie or saute them up for dinner. Now, this, because we're on one of these important celebrations of the year, every year in December, I draw a set of cards to just kind of help us get a message for the different times of the year. And it's called the Wheel of the Year. And I used this deck here, the Herb Crafters Tarot, and it's a beautiful deck that has all kinds of medicinal plants in it. And it's similar to a regular tarot deck, but it's completely focused on the herbal aspect of the plants. So when I do this in December, oftentimes they'll think, well, that's a weird plant to have for that particular time of year. And but I always just kind of go with it and go with the plant that comes up. So the plant for spring equinox is elder. And most of you are probably thinking of elder as elderberries. And that's what's super popular, and most people have that. But the elder flower is another incredibly important part of the plant that we can use for our own health. It is one of the best herbs to use in the case of a fever. And it helps to bring the fever down and helps with the sweating and helps to get that out. It's also just a very lovely tasting tea as well. And I've also collected elderflower, and I've made a like an extract for a facial toner as well. And last year I made an elder in glycerin and used that in some of the lotions that I made last year. So elderflower, it does make sense. Elder blooms, depending where you live, anywhere from January up through May. And so whenever your spring is starting, it's more like a late spring bloomer, you are going to have elder blooming, and it's all across the entire United States. And one of the beautiful things about elder is that the lore of elder is that it is considered a protective and somewhat magical type of plant. And so this just brought me to think about spring and the magical and miraculous things that we witness as nature begins to come alive again. And I want to share the card with you now. This is the card. And again, the picture on the card shows the elderberries and the harvest and them making all these different concoctions in their kitchen, and making in the front there is a little magic wand that they're making out of the elder sticks, one of the branches of the elder. And elder was thought of as being protective for the home. If an elder tree was growing, or you would want to plant an elder tree if it didn't show up in your yard or near your front door to help bring protection to your home. And so the words on the card say, make a little magic, stir up a special ceremony. Holy helpers guide you and lend you power. Honor the beings who guard the liminal places. So this idea of a liminal place, this sort of place in between the solid physical world and the more etheric or spiritual world, this is what we feel at this time of year when we are transitioning between these different seasons. And I just love this idea of make a little magic, because I think it's very important at these transitions to mark these transitions with something a little bit special or ceremonial in whatever tradition you choose. And I love nature and I love plants very much. And so I was thinking about what we do at this time of year is we're planting a lot of seeds. And I, as some of you might know, as I've mentioned before, I am a seed keeper and seed saver, and I harvest a lot of seeds in the fall. And so this time of year, I'm thinking about the seeds and how amazing and miraculous it is that a teeny tiny seed can hold the entire life of a plant, and that plant, the plant life, holds our lives because we are nourished and held and by the plants themselves. The oxygen we breathe is from the plants, and it's such a wonderful sort of symbiotic relationship. And so I thought what I would like to do, and perhaps this rings true for you, and you can do this as well, is to plant a seed in honor of spring. And so today I've got my little pot here, and I'm just going to plant some parsley seeds, but I'm going to do it more with intention and gratitude, and with thanks for nature, for spirit, whatever your belief is, and to just recognize how amazing it is that this little seed that I hold between my fingers, that you can't even see on this video, holds the entire life force within it. And so I'm dropping these seeds in here with just a feeling of awe and reverence for the miracle and magic of nature, that this growing season begins today. So I hope you'll think about planting a seed yourself. Perhaps if you live in a warmer area than me, to go outside and just sit and appreciate some fresh spring growth that might be coming up, and realize how we're all connected to every part of nature, to every other person, and just spend a moment to be in awe and reverence this spring equinox. So thank you so much for joining me for this special show, and take care, everyone. Have a wonderful spring. Bye-bye.